everyone, and welcome to episode 12 of Superannuated Starman. If this is your first time listening to the podcast, please consider going back and checking out some of the other episodes that we have. I'm your host, Sean Ryan. Today, I'll be joined by Chris Duerksen.
Hi, how's it going?
It's going, man.
Threw you off with a question, didn't I?
Yeah, you did, man. And
I totally ruined the flow. Cory, how are you doing?
Lucas.
Oh, back to that.
So, in this episode, we'll be discussing DuckTales for the Nintendo Entertainment System. But before we talk about our personal history with the game, let's discuss this game's own history. So, this game was developed and published by Capcom. DuckTales was a platformer for the NES based on the Disney animated television series of the same name. It was released on September 14th, 1989 in North America, January 16th, 1990 in Japan, and December 14th of that same year in Europe. It was also ported to the Game Boy in 1990. Despite the game being developed by a Japanese company, the NES version was released first in North America. However, the Game Boy port was released first in Japan and then North America. DuckTales also had a direct sequel that released on both the NES and the Game Boy that released in 1993 in all territories. DuckTales is the first licensed game that Capcom developed, and if you ever play this game and the art style and the music remind you of anything, there's a reason for that. Mega Man, another Capcom franchise, shares several key personnel with DuckTales. Takuro Fujiwara. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. That's one of the things I put in my notes. I'm like, the victory music sounds just like Mega Man.
Yeah, there's tons of Mega Man vibes here, and
yeah, totally. The art style, like wow, the pixels, like I got a lot of Mega Man vibes. But anyways, sorry.
Keiji Inafune was a longtime artist for both of those series. Takuro Fujiwara served as a producer for DuckTales and for Mega Man 2. And there's several other members that I didn't list, but those are two probably the most notable ones.
That is so crazy. Like I imagine going from working on Mega Man, because in Mega Man 2, like we talked about in the Mega Man, like that was their passion baby, right?
Yeah, they were working on DuckTales in their free time.
Right.
Or I guess the other way around. Mega Man was the free time. DuckTales what they had to do.
I don't think Mega Man 2 was that. I'll look that up while we're talking about our personal histories. Yeah, it's
Mega Man 2 was 88, so yeah, they're probably a little early.
It's so obvious that there's so much DNA from Mega Man like built into DuckTales.
Well, and imagine, I mean, DuckTales, let's be real, like this was before the globalization of the entertainment market, like whatever you, I'm completely talking out my ass here, but I'm pretty sure Japan probably didn't give two, I don't know how to say it without cussing.
Yeah, they didn't
about DuckTales. And until the game came out, and the game was probably, I assume it was because it was a super popular game. So I assume they probably didn't care about the cartoon, but the game was probably like, oh, this is worth checking out. But imagine like them working on Mega Man 2, they're rock stars making Mega Man 2, and then making DuckTales about a silly Saturday morning cartoon for Americans. And then they made this amazing game out of it.
And this is one of those games that was a huge success. Like you mentioned, it sold over 3 million copies across the NES and the Game Boy versions. So this is probably in part to aggressive marketing from Nintendo. It was the game chosen for the cover of the Volume 8 of Nintendo Power and received a 12-page spread over it. Its success was definitely well-deserved. In 2009, IGN ranked it as the 10th best NES game on its 100 greatest NES games of all time. The game even got an HD remake in 2013 for the PS3, Xbox 360, Wii U, and Steam. It was developed by WayForward Technologies and published by Capcom. The remake had mixed reviews, with some critics hailing it for its authenticity to the original, while others felt that it was a missed opportunity for fans because they were expecting more. And in my opinion, if you have the ability to play the remake, you absolutely should. The graphics are phenomenal in HD. The remastered songs are an excellent homage to the already outstanding soundtrack that we got on the NES, and they included voice acting that includes some of the original voice actors from the animated series.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
obviously I have not checked that out.
You definitely should. It's a great way to play the game. But with all that out of the way, let's listen to some of that great music I was talking about, and when we come back, we'll discuss our personal histories with the game. Welcome back, everyone. So, Chris and I both played this game as a kid. Cory, as you know, for some previous
Sega
episode,
boy.
he was a Sega kid. So, he didn't get to play this game at the time that we did. So, Chris, why don't you start us off and talk about your childhood memories with DuckTales for the NES?
Alrighty. Well, first off, I was a big fan of the cartoon. Did either of you guys watch the cartoon?
Absolutely.
Yes, I did, and so apparently did the people of Japan, as I looked it up during the break. So you were wrong, Chris. The Japanese love DuckTales.
I'm happy to be wrong. That's great. DuckTales is so great. Brings the world together. Anyways, so yeah, I obviously watched the cartoon. I did not own the game myself, but this game was huge. Said it sold like 3 million copies or whatever. I saw somewhere else, I can't remember where, but that was basically like the equivalent of they said that was like as big of a success as like GoldenEye was for the 64, where just everybody had it. And
I can see that.
so it pretty much all of my family members all had this game, and I remember pretty much at every holiday get together. In particular, I remember I had a stepdad for a while who I don't know how she was related to him, but I used to go over there and she babysat me from time to time, and she had like her Nintendo like on a cart with wheels with the TV on top of it, and like
That's awesome.
and
Was
like
she a substitute teacher?
no, but she had like all of her games like in a little plastic basket, like a pencil basket underneath the Nintendo, and DuckTales was obviously one of them. And but yeah, pretty much every family get together, Christmas, Thanksgiving, stuff like that, or random friends' houses that my dad would take me to. Like DuckTales was literally everywhere, as well as being a regular rental game for me. I mean, and to be fair, I mean, like my memories of this game as a kid, is that this game was awesome. Like it was on par with Mario 1 and 2. Came out when I was 5, so obviously by the time I was playing it, like I had the same. I got my Nintendo like in like in 1990. When you're 6 years old, 8 years old, you're not aware of how old games are, unless they're horribly old. But you know what I mean? Like Mario 2 and Mario 3, they didn't feel years apart.
Yeah,
to me. Like
you didn't understand what release dates were. Is like
yeah, exactly. Like
like
you
they
didn't.
all looked roughly the same, unless it was something on like the Atari.
Yeah. Like you didn't have different game eras. Like oh, this was part of Nintendo's classic era, and this is the golden age. And no, games are games. And I had no idea DuckTales was that old because it plays like it is probably one of the best playing Nintendo games that I've ever played. And as a kid, it was an instant classic because yeah, I compared it right along to like Mario 3 and Mario 2 and Mega Man, which I mean, you said it has a lot of similarities to Mega Man, but yeah, I mean, like it's just so weird because I mean, it's DuckTales, like it is literally like a little kid's cartoon, and it's made such a great game. But yeah, remember playing it. I remember pretty much as a kid. I never beat it as a kid, mostly because it's not a very long game, but it is long enough. And as a kid, I don't remember it being as easy as it is now as an adult. When I was a kid, I struggled with it. But that's also because I didn't play it every day. But the game, I don't know. How long did it take you guys to beat it on this playthrough? If you did, it took me probably a few hours, couple hours.
Well, let's hold off talking about our replays of this game.
Fair enough. But as a kid, I mean, like I didn't have that much time to put into it. So every time I played, I pretty much just pick a level because this is also kind of like Mega Man where you can kind of just choose where you start. So as a kid, pretty much anytime I could, I just pick, whatever starting place you wanted to, except for the mines. But
what level did you consistently go to, or did you have a favorite as a kid?
Most not to sound corny, but the Amazon. That was the Amazon, right?
Yeah.
Or actually, no. You know what? No. As a kid, my favorite was totally Transylvania, and even as an adult, Transylvania. Well, I mean, the Moon one's pretty great, but Transylvania as a kid, that was because it was cartoony and kind of spooky and kind of fun, and I had no idea as a kid that like that level was so important. But that was the one that I always kind of started off. Plus, it wasn't too terribly hard. It was just a fun, cartoony, Halloweeny level, you know. And yeah, I think that's pretty much sums up my childhood memories. Except, I mean, the music is great. Hearing the music again totally reminded me of being 8 years old all over again. And this was one game that I've never replayed up until now, and I forgot how important this game was in our childhood. Not important as in like, oh, you know, but you know, like what a staple it was for Nintendo, and what a big hit it was. And also, I mean, I didn't know, you know, what era it came out in, like I was talking before, but the graphics for it, I thought were really good. Yeah, like even as a kid, like it was not like they could have really phoned this one in, but they didn't. Like it would have been so easy.
I absolutely agree with that.
Yeah, because I mean, DuckTales, it was already it's a Disney title for one. The show I remember as a kid. I mean, I didn't look up the metrics or anything, but the show was insanely popular when we were kids. Like they could have easily just slapped the DuckTales name on a piece of garbage game, like Atari did for, you know, ET, and
But,
hope it would sell.
I think that that really didn't happen that often because a lot of these titles were really well done. Like as far as like
I
big
remember
name
I played a
ports and
lot
everything.
of played a lot of horrible Mickey games.
Well, I guess, yeah, but I mean, you look at it like there's a pretty good track record. Like you've got Aladdin, you've got Lion King, you've got this one, you've got like the Berenstain Bears, there's like a bunch of titles that are like children's games basically that are really well done, like Ronald McDonald. Like
Well,
there's
would you
quite a
consider
few
the
of them.
Aladdin and Lion King really well done, or the famously difficult?
They are really well done, though. That's the thing. Like they're not difficult because they're poorly made. They're difficult because they're difficult.
Yeah,
Like
that's true. That's true.
they're still
It
like
still felt
really
good.
well
Yeah.
balanced like games. They're just flipping impossible.
The
I don't know,
Aladdin games, especially, I want to make sure that we talk about those in a later episode. We have to play those games, but for now, talking about Aladdin and comparing other licensed games, there are plenty of great ones, especially the ones that kind of came from Disney, because Disney had some oversight into it, making sure that their IPs weren't treated like trash. When you have other titles that came out on the NES that were licensed titles, especially, you know, everybody knows LGN, they were not a great developer, but they have games that came out like Back to the Future. Did either of you ever play that?
Yes. Yeah. That's a perfect example where, I mean, that was a great franchise where it could have been an awesome game, and the game sucked. I remember
I'm
I
not
rented
going to
that
say
game
that
once, and I'm
there's
like,
no cash grabs out there, but as far as like games catered towards children, I do think that the majority of them were actually really well done.
yeah. I'm
I
just
mean,
saying.
like Cool Spot was a ridiculous video game,
Oh my
but that
god,
was
yes,
fun.
that was a great game.
Yeah.
Like the 7-Up logo guy became like a great like video game.
Yo Noid?
Yeah, I was just gonna
Yeah.
say, Yo Noid.
And like
I love
Izzy in the Olympic rings, like the mascot for like the 96 like Olympic Games would became a video game. Like there's
Well,
a bunch of them out there like that.
But I'm just saying. I mean, there's also, I would say there's probably one for one other major franchises like Back to the Future and, oh god, I just had it on the tip of my tongue. I forgot it. Gremlins.
There's so
Gremlins.
Gremlins 2 has an amazing soundtrack though.
Yes, it does, but the game itself was just absolutely horrible.
Yeah, I mean,
And
I'm not disagreeing that there's some garbage out there, but I think by and large, like when it's not a specific tie-in, because you know, I think they made the DuckTales game, but I don't think they were going, let's make it because we're releasing like the DuckTales movie, you know.
But I mean, that's the thing. I mean, this game came out a year after the series started. I mean, like it was definitely tied in. Like I don't know
But
how
I don't
long.
think they launched it with the specific intent of being like, all right, we got to get ready because you know we're dropping the new Power Rangers film or whatever, you know.
Right. But no. And all I'm saying is that, I mean, like, there were plenty of duds out there, and this is definitely not one of them. Like this game was so good because they could have slapped the DuckTales name on a simple, boring, easy game. Instead, like, this game is right up there to me with the Mario series, with the Mega Man series. I mean, like, this game, and even as a kid, like this game was great. And like I said, I it was mostly rentals or like afternoon sleepover kind of playing time for me. So I never got too far, but it was not a short game either. Like it had some depth to it. I mean, it was not as long as like Mario 3, but it still, it was,
I
it
don't know
took
too
some,
many games that were as long as Mario 3.
yeah, but
especially without save states.
yeah. And that was the other thing. As a kid, like I remember that was one reason I thought this game was so brutal. There were no continues, and there are no save states. You know, like there's no cheap passwords or anything like that. Like every time you start, it's a fresh start. Which was why I was also very glad, like just like Mega Man, like you can pick wherever you start. So that way, like I never beat it as a kid, but I didn't feel the need. Like I didn't feel like I was missing out on it because you still see the whole game. You know, it's great.
Mostly.
Yeah, yeah, for the most part, and you still see 90% of it. And yeah, no, this game was a lot of fun to play with. A great soundtrack, great graphics, and you know, never got old. What about you, Sean? You said you played as a kid too, right?
Yeah, so like you, I didn't own this game as a kid, but it was a game that we got to rent and we rented it often. My parents are already aware of the show because we had the Disney Channel. They both worked, so there had to be something on the television to keep us entertained. And they didn't have a problem with it because they, the box art, that is pulled directly out of what you would see in a show. There was
Yeah,
no, there was no like trickery or anything. When someone looked at that box art, they knew
you
they were
knew.
going to get DuckTales.
Yeah,
Very
And
wholesome
it was not a
content.
screen grab. It was yeah. I mean, let's see. Even looking back at it, and sorry to keep interrupting, but you mentioned the box art. Even as a kid, like that is such an iconic like that box art. It was the same art as the show itself. Like that was my childhood right there. Like this game is so nostalgic. It's just dripping in it. Like
yeah, I
so.
just I just pulled up the box art and it has Launchpad and Huey, Dewey, and Louie, in the helicopter with Scrooge McDuck holding onto it with the Beagle Boys close behind, and it's a state of the art, high resolution graphics, which I will
it,
say, for that time, the graphics were amazing.
yeah. I mean, hey, let me ask you, Sean. You're an expert. What year did Mario 3 come out?
Oh man, don't put me on the spot like that. I'd have to look. I don't remember exactly because I
80.
always mix up the Japanese and the American releases for stuff.
Apparently, it
So
was October of '88.
October '88.
Okay. So because yes, it was. But yeah, I always kind of. Oh no, actually, in North America, it was 1990. But yeah, I'd say the graphics are probably about on the same page as Mario 3. Like as far
Yeah,
as like the nice, clean, cartoony graphics.
yeah. I think the game looks great. And you mentioned Transylvania. That was my favorite level as a kid. And part of the reason that it's my favorite level is because there's a lot of enemies that felt like they could have been a part of the show. And in fact, both of you guys have mentioned that you watch DuckTales. If you watch the opening cinematic, there's
Yeah, he's chasing
bl-
getting chased by the mummy.
yeah, he's being chased by the mummies, and then you go to Transylvania and you see these mummies that are ducks, wrapped up in I don't even know what they're called, rags
Toilet
at that
paper.
point. Yeah, as a
Yeah, they're
kid,
wrapped up in
that's what
cartoon
you kind
toilet
of
paper.
assume. So for me playing this game as a kid, it was kind of I had younger siblings, so I had to share. And anybody that has younger siblings knows that you have to basically every time anyone dies, you have to pass the controller.
Yep.
That's just the rule. Because of that, that meant that I didn't get a lot of time to really play this game the way I would have liked to play, just doing those levels over and over again till the point that I could beat them. But my younger brother didn't want to do that. He wanted to choose a new level almost every single time he died.
Every time, yeah.
Yeah, so that becomes, a major pain. And because it's a Disney game and it's a good game, and it was DuckTales, it was something we were both interested in, no one lost interest in it. And we didn't want to get up and go do something else. So that meant if you were, renting that game, it meant that both of you were sitting in front of the television playing that game.
By the way, I was the same way your brother was. Every time I died, I picked another one
Ah,
because it
no
just
way.
As a kid, I didn't feel the need to beat it. Like I felt the need to explore because, oh, by the way, like another way to compare this to Mario, there are so many secrets in this game.
Oh yeah,
Everywhere.
like
Yeah.
even in the first like 5 minutes of the Amazon, there's a secret.
Yeah, and it reminds me of Mario 1 where you can like jump up above the level and run like where the score and stuff is. It like
Mhm.
so as a kid I didn't feel the need to beat it. I just enjoyed exploring the game.
Well,
So yeah, every
that's what
time
I wanted to do. I wanted to explore those levels, but I didn't feel that I
by
could
progressing.
because we were changing to a new level every 10 minutes. So less than that. So I didn't feel like I could get a chance to like learn any of these levels and explore them because we were constantly moving on to a new one.
Now I will admit, like as a kid, I'm like I didn't have that many difficulties beating the levels. I just never had the game long enough where I could actually beat all 5 levels in a row.
Mhm.
Like so, I normally beat a level, pick another one. Like I get to beat one or two at a time, then I'd die, and then I'd start over and pick two different levels, or one other level and see how far. So I mean, like I did see the completion of each stages, but like I don't know, it was just like a little buffet of. And that's the other thing. This game, like as a kid, it was like a buffet because each stage that you got to pick was so different than the previous one.
And without the ability to save, when your parents ask you to come down for dinner or do some chores or they just
That's the
make you go
worst.
outside, that meant that you were going to lose everything you've done up to that point, and then you'd have to start that all over again, especially if you have younger siblings, doing the back and forth and trying to get through these games. And like I mentioned, I have a younger brother. He's 3 years younger than me, and so this is the early '90s. He was born in late 1986, so he was 4, maybe 5 at the time that we got this game, and the Transylvania level scared him.
Really?
Yeah.
But it's so see, I love how cartoony, how silly, creepy it was.
Well, I mean, you know how it is. Sometimes young children just are scared of something,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, so because of that, he would run and tell my parents that he was scared, so they would say you aren't allowed to play that level. So
Oh.
I would I'd still do it, but
and, and
he'd
look,
run off and tell on me, and then I'd have to let him play, while I just sat there and
and in hindsight, like the Transylvania level is like the main level that everything else circles around. Like,
yeah.
so yeah, that must have been a huge hindrance.
Yeah, it was a major pain. And as a kid, my favorite is probably Transylvania. But if I had to pick, another level, it's
The
it's
moon,
on par.
right?
It's the moon.
Yeah, yeah,
The music mixed with that
And the moon
atmosphere
music's great.
and the
dude.
unique atmosphere made that level really, really fun. And I also enjoyed the African mines. That was another one that I really
Yeah,
enjoyed.
me too.
But replaying it again, I don't really know why. But we'll talk about that later. Chris, was there any part of the game that you found to be like extremely difficult?
As a kid,
Yeah,
uh, yeah, the snow level. Because like as a
the
kid,
Himalayas.
yeah, because like as a kid, like you learn the pogo stick right away, and that was what made the game so fun because it was different than other platformers that you got to bounce around on everything like a pogo stick, and that level you don't get to. So
Yeah, not in every area. It does have snow hazards.
yeah, so that level as a kid, that I probably avoided that level more than the other ones. Oh, and the goats, come on, like. Anyways,
I
what
found
about
the
you?
I found the Amazon to be the toughest as a kid because those
See,
damn bees, man.
yeah, but that was also the one that I played by default the most because it was on the top. And like as a kid, like I mean, the music for it, I also think the music for the Amazon level is great, and it's just such a colorful, happy level. I don't know. It reminded me of like other games of the time where it was fun to run through jungles and jump on stuff, like. And I mean, looking back on it, like the Amazon level is definitely kind of like the most platformy, and the spike parts are a bit of a pain. It can be difficult as a kid, but it's still I really enjoyed those levels as a kid.
I'm not saying it's a bad level. It's just one that I found to have a lot of difficulty with as a kid, and so just kind of avoided it. Corey, do
And
you have
and for me, it was definitely difficult, but I didn't avoid it because it was difficult, but it was a lot of fun.
Corey? Do you have anything you'd like to add?
not really for the early game.
Hearing us
I
talk about it like this, did you wish you were a Nintendo kid?
no. I did have a little bit of experience with this. I played it, I think, as a rental at one point, like later on. I've also seen like it played at friends' houses and stuff like that. So I mean, I'm familiar with the game. I just I really don't have too much time, like kind of playing it myself.
That's fair. You don't have solid memories of the game, just kind of tertiary stuff.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like, oh yeah, I've seen it before. Like I remember like having someone play it in front of me or something.
That's fair. Makes sense. Chris, do you got anything else?
Woohoo!
All right, so let's wrap up this section, and we're going to listen to some more of that music from DuckTales. And when we come back, we're going to talk about what it's like replaying DuckTales in 2022. Stick around. Now that we've discussed our personal histories with the game, we're going to go ahead and talk about playing DuckTales in the modern age. And similar to how we did Shinobi 3 episode, I'd like for us to go level by level, and we'll all talk about our impressions kind of at the same time. And if we talk over each other, is what it is. This is all about kind of expressing how we feel about playing this game today. And I had a ton of fun with it. How about you guys?
Yeah,
I
had
did.
fun.
And this one, yeah. I was just gonna say I'm probably gonna keep playing this one over and over. I never would have thought to play this game again until you brought it up, and now that you did, this was a lot of fun. This is a great Nintendo game.
Yeah, I mean, it was on that list of games that I gave you guys that, ones I wanted to talk about. So let's start with the Amazon. So that, like I mentioned, that was one of the levels that I kind of hated as a kid just because it was so difficult. No, I shouldn't say hated. I just kind of avoided it because it was, in my opinion, the hardest level of the game. I think the enemy placement is pretty poor. There's a part that I could not avoid the bee, and I was forced to take damage.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, no, I'm the same way there. I hate the bees in that level.
Yeah, they have really annoying flight patterns, and they're not. It's not like Castlevania with Medusa heads where you can figure it out. It seems like the bees are just random.
I did figure out like the part where you have to climb up the vines, and there's like the bee above you, and then the bee below you.
Yeah,
I was
you're gonna
able
get
to
hit.
figure that. Yeah, I was able to figure that one out 50% of the time, but that was still mostly a lot of luck. But anyways, no, the Amazon level, like even played now, like I said, as a kid, I played this level a lot as a kid just because it's by default it's the first level. And it's also kind of I would consider this kind of like the tutorial level. I mean, isn't this? I mean, this is the level where like it teaches you, hey, bounce on your cane. So I play this level a lot, and as an adult, it's difficult, but I really enjoy this level.
So Corey, we were talking a little bit off air, and you were saying that you have some difficulties with the pogo mechanic.
Yeah, it's
Get good.
some pretty get good. It's some pretty like tight timing. One of the things I noticed, the first of all, I knew of the pogo mechanic. I could not replicate it myself until I looked up the manual.
You mean in real life?
Yeah, like okay,
like with
first
an
of
actual
all,
pogo?
I'm gonna karate chop you first of all. But no, like I mean, because I've seen people play through this. Like I watched playthrough beforehand, so I could figure out what's going on and everything. And like you'd see Scrooge bouncing on his cane, and I boot up the game and I gave it a shot, and I for the life of me could not figure out how to do it. So I had to like look up the old manual and find like somebody's Xeroxed copy of it to figure out that you have to like jump with A, and then you have to like hold down and then hit B to get the pogo stick to happen. And then if you
But then
hold
once
B,
yeah,
you can get it to bounce around, which
yeah,
is cool. But like like you also can screw it up quite frequently. So
But once you get going with it, all you gotta do is just
right,
hold
but
it,
like,
and then
but
it's
then
just
you,
boing,
but
boing.
then you get into some place where like you don't need to pogo anymore, and you have to kind of reset it, and then, or if you stop for something to look at something, or you smack something
It's
with your
hard.
cane,
It is hard
like
to build like a reflex
yeah,
to do it
like to get
quickly.
your momentum
Yeah.
going, like it is, it's pretty tricky. That being
Um,
said, I think it is a really fun mechanic.
it's super fun mechanic. But you mentioned watching replays. One thing I did not even realize you could do, and I have not actually tried it since watching the replay. There's ways to cancel the pogo midair, where like so that way you don't pogo as high, or is that somebody just glitching or something? Because it looked like they were like literally stopping the pogo
I'm
in
not sure,
midair to
honestly.
stop themselves from hitting the spikes in the ceiling. Like there's a way to like only pogo half height. Sean, do you
Yeah,
know
I
it?
mean,
I
there
don't.
are a variety of like little tricks to kind of interrupt yourself or like do a lot of stuff with it. But I mean, I played the Amazon level first, and playing through that, there was plenty of profanity. I I kept running
Wait,
into monsters and stuff, and like getting hung up on things, and
eh,
like I said, I think it was a lot of fun. I just ended up like killing myself quite a bit in the early game.
and to be fair, um, I do think the Amazon level is definitely the most platformy-ish, jumpy, precise.
Agreed.
Yeah. That, like I said, I mean, it feels like the tutorial because you were literally just jumping over and grabbing everything in that level, and and it also seems like in that level, every square inch that you jump, that you think is just nothing in the air, a treasure appears or an ice cream cone. Like,
Oh yeah, there's loot all over the place. That's one of the other
yeah,
things that's really fun about this.
So I just pulled up the manual and because I wanted to look at what you were talking about the as far as controlling, Uncle Scrooge, and the part where I was talking about that bee that you can't avoid. It says in the manual, one final note: when Uncle Scrooge is damaged, he's invulnerable for a second or two. Take advantage of this time to get past tough opponents.
huh.
They are telling you to damage boost for this level because they put in unfair areas. That's crap.
I don't know if it's necessarily that they're telling you that you have to damage boost through it, or if they're just saying like if you're bad, you can just run by.
Sorry, I just muted for a second because my dog just came in and she's very loud.
Didn't even hear it.
Well,
That's all
I,
good.
I quickly muted, but she slams her tail around a lot, so you'll probably
Aw.
hear that in the background. She's a good girl. So okay, I'm not being racist when I say this. This is just from the manual and from the game and everything. The natives, that's what they're called.
Oh yeah, the Amazonians.
Yeah.
They-
So these they're so fast and they throw spears, so they have projectiles, which you don't have.
but their spears. Do they look like spears? To me, they look like
Well, they look like
plungers.
little blunted, like the little like blunted spears. They have like a big ball on the end.
To me, they
It,
they remind me of cartoon plungers.
it is a Disney game.
Yeah.
So there's a section where you have two, I think, spiders that drop down, and there's a
Yeah,
native that'll
that part
spawn
is
on the
that.
right side.
Yes.
Yes, and he'll keep respawning endlessly, and if you want to get past it, you're gonna have to do that. You're gonna have to damage boost, and I almost ran out the clock trying to get through it without getting hit.
One of the things that does drive me crazy is the fact that the spiders refuse to
Drop ahead of time.
they refuse to like stay on a legitimate like they're not on a timer. Like they literally wait for you. So if you're constantly pogo sticking, like the spider will not come down. He will sit there in the sky until you stop moving, and then he'll come down at you.
What are the blocks in Mario 3 called? The ones that,
The thwomps.
yes. Yeah, thank you. The thwomps where, you can kind of like if you get close
Yeah,
to them,
you can time in.
yeah, you can juke them out and make them drop down, whereas these things, no, they stay there until you actually are underneath them.
Yeah, that SOB will stay in the sky until he's good and ready. And by that I mean until you stop moving, and then he comes down to kill you.
Yeah, there's a lot of areas in this game where I think that there are good, solid programming and good game mechanics, but there's plenty of parts like the spiders that definitely aren't. And it's just, I think it's poor enemy placement has a mixture in there as well. But again, this is one of those very early, Nintendo games where they haven't found themselves yet. They don't have all the gaming conventions nailed down yet.
But hey, if we're gonna compare apples, eras,
Apples
we
to
discussed
eras. I do enjoy
Mario.
doing that.
Mario 3 came out a year before this one, and Mario 3
Well,
But it's a
was
different developer as
Yeah.
well. Like, you can't say that like Capcom did Mario 3,
I would like to
But
see an alternate reality where Capcom did Mario 3.
I bet you'd be much more brutal.
Yeah. Oh my God. Maybe I don't want that.
But I mean, like, it's
You don't just
always
stomp on enemies.
one thing to have like the primary company make games and then have third party developers do stuff,
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying.
Like when Sony does their titles, it's like, okay, here's Sony putting out Final Fantasy, and then you have, Bob's video game company that's like, this is our first shot at it, Like, you can't really
To
expect the
compare
same.
better apples to apples, if like comparing it to Mega Man 2, there are definitely places in Mega Man 2, like we're talking about, like with like the laser beams, where like it's just like
And I mean,
it feels like
I
bad
agree,
placement.
You're talking
like,
about Elecman's level?
Yes.
And I mean, I don't know if part of that's just, this being a bit of a rush job, maybe, or if it's just the fact that they really didn't care as much, or if they were, legitimately going for just annoying things like that. Who's to say? But
Now I
it's
will
still
admit, I mean,
playable.
but we're talking about like bad enemy placement and stuff like. I don't think it. There's only a few spots in this game where it's really like that. So it's not.
I think
It's
a
not
lot of
peppered
it is in
throughout.
the rainforest too. I really didn't
Yep.
notice it too much after the Amazon.
Yeah.
Question for you guys: did either of you pay the idol?
No.
What do you mean pay the idol?
So in the far right of the level, there's a giant stone idol.
Oh, where you have
that-
to pay the money to like fight him?
I don't know. I didn't pay him, so I don't know if he like moves out of the way and there's more level accessible behind him.
No, I looked it
like
up.
you get to the end of the level and then you give the guy money and then you go upstairs and fight the boss.
Yeah, it just takes you straight to the boss. But
Oh, does it?
But yeah, when I saw that, I was like, I mean, it's one of those things as a like.
Yeah, it was
It's like
rolling
playing
cash.
Mario
I
1. I don't
was
remember when I learned the secrets in this game. You just like in Mario 1, you know where that first invisible block is before you even remember where you learned it. Like this game, I remember like you never pay the idol. Like there's just the way to go up right above it. Like
I tell you that I was like, here, this chump change. I'm Scrooge McDuck.
Well, let's talk about the boss and then wrap up this level. So the boss, Zarduck, basically just slides back and forth.
His name is Zarduck.
His name
Really?
is Zarduck,
wait, we were talking about the Amazon boss, right?
the Amazon boss. He'll just slide back and forth, and occasionally he'll hop.
I just remember is the Tiki boss.
Yeah, he's like a big glowing statue.
Yeah. Does it say his name anywhere in the game?
I don't know where.
I don't think
So-
it does.
Okay, so
I-
your names
it's-
names for the bosses are going to be way different than my names for the
Yeah,
bosses.
it's not
Glowing
listed.
Tiki Man.
It's not listed as far as I know in the game, but like I mentioned
It's
before,
probably in the
I do
book
a
or
lot of
something.
reast for
Yeah.
all these titles, so I'm looking up
And we just
everything I
show up.
can. And you guys are just here.
You know that fight with Zarduck? No, we do not.
Tiki boss.
All right, so wrapping up the Amazon, let's move on to Transylvania.
Oh wait, about the Tiki boss though. Since we just played Mega Man, I was expecting these fights, like, even still, when Tiki boss jumps and like stomps the ground.
Zarduck.
It reminds me of Mario 3, like the Mario 3 bosses where like when they jump up in the air and they stomp the ground, like you're gonna be stuck there for a second. And that
Or Guts,
This-
man.
yeah, or Guts Man. But yeah, like I was expecting like this boss is way easier than it looks to be.
Well, almost
Which you
all
guys
the
both-
bosses are pretty easy. I think that kind of what Cory was talking about earlier about these games are intended for young children. Their demographic was the same kids that
That's
were
true.
watching
Yeah.
DuckTales.
This game is not meant to punish you. It's not like Yellow Devil.
Yeah, I mean, you have like 5 continues as a baseline.
All right, so we're wrapping it up.
Okay.
Transylvania,
Awesome music.
Great music.
Hurricane.
great
The best-
atmosphere.
Transylvania.
I mean, the Mew music is definitely the best music, but Transylvania's music, everybody's gonna pick the Mew music as the best music. So to not be,
It's great.
yeah, exactly. To not
Music.
pick the most popular favorite one, I'd pick Transylvania as my favorite just because it's so good.
And this level felt, like I mentioned earlier, it felt the most like something ripped right out of the cartoon.
Yes, I will agree with that.
Near the start of the level, you run into Webby, and she tells you that Huey has been kidnapped. And I remember that I had to find him, but I couldn't remember why I had to find him. And he's actually really close by. You just have to climb the rope and go left. But I didn't do that. I just kept going right through that narrow passage with the mummy ducks, and I kept getting teleported around until eventually I ran into him and got that level clue, the clue about there's a fake wall. And as soon as I got that clue, I remembered where the fake wall was, and I remember thinking about it when I got to that part of the level that it looked off, but I didn't walk through it or anything.
Now I remember. Side note, with this particular level, I hate comparing everything to Mario, but didn't the skeleton ducks remind you of the skeleton things in Mario?
No.
Where you can jump on them, they collapse, and then they get back up again, and they just kind of...
Dry bones?
Yes, the dry bones.
No, not to me.
Oh. And then
Or-
the mummies kind of remind me of the balls and chains.
No. Yeah, they were just duck skeletons.
Yeah, they were just mummy ducks to me.
Okay. But anyways, but you're talking about the fake wall. The other tricky thing in this level was the all the mirrors, where it's kind of... I remember, like, as an 8-year-old, I used to get lost in this level all the time. Like, it seems so much bigger than what it really is.
Absolutely. It's not
the
very
mirrors,
linear.
yeah.
And there's a lot of opportunity to get stuck in a loop.
Yes. And as a little kid, I that level seemed like it was like 8 times longer than all the other ones, but really is because I just kept taking the wrong mirrors. It reminded me of like oh god, I was about to make another Mario comparison. It reminds me of the final castle in Mario 1, where if you don't take the right path, it just repeats.
The fortress with all the doors.
Uh-huh.
Cory, you've been pretty quiet, man.
I'm just having a good time. I'm listening.
All right. So we get through the level finally. We find the fake wall. We use the right mirror. We get through everything. And then at the end, we have a fight with Magica Dispel.
You mean Dracula Duck? No, not Dracula.
No. Dracula Duck. We'll get to that, but Magica Dispel is actually a character in the
Miss
show.
Dracula, yeah.
So
what was her name?
Magica Dispel.
Magica Dispel.
But yeah, that she reminded me of Bride of Frankenstein.
Yeah, I can see that. The fight is much more mechanically complicated than the other fights.
Yes.
She'll fly around at varying heights, drop down and transform back into a duck, and shoot out 3 bolts of lightning that you have to quickly jump towards her, and the moment she lands, so that you can pogo on her back. Otherwise, you're going to get hit by one of those bolts.
Yeah, she was the hard one.
She's my favorite boss in this game, I think.
I don't know. Yeah, I think she's probably up there.
I mean, she's my... I mean, it's my favorite level, so she's gonna be my favorite boss.
Sound reasoning. So these levels aren't very long, so we're just kind of going through them pretty quickly. You guys got anything else about Transylvania?
Nope. Just, I mean, and if anybody, just one thing to keep in mind, I briefly mentioned it before. Each level is so different than the previous one. Like we were just talking about the Amazon, where everything's green and lush and kind of bright and cartoony.
The palette variety is pretty impressive here.
Yeah, it's great. And then the Transylvania level is about to do it again. It's like the ghost house in Mario.
Man, you gotta stop that, man. Play other games.
You guys ever hear about this Mario game? It's pretty wild.
So
you guys have played it before.
While we're still stuck on Transylvania, there were some regional differences with this game between the North American and Japanese versions. So on the coffins, they had giant crosses on them. But in the North America release, they replaced that because of Nintendo and religion, and it just says RIP.
Right. I did not know that.
Yeah, just one of the small things that didn't need to be changed. Who's going to be upset about that?
It's the 80s. That was still when angry
You're upset. And Jason
angry moms
says-
were,
Yeah,
taking things
there
to
was a
court.
giant controversy, and we talked about this in the Castlevania level about the second volume in Nintendo Power. So, moving on to the African mines, and not for very long, because right at the beginning of the level, you're told by one of your nephews that there's a key required to progress, and that it's in Transylvania. And without any warning, you're immediately teleported back there, and you have to find the skeleton key.
So this level, though, here's another comparison. Not Mario, though. It reminded me
Back
of
to
Donkey
Mega
Kong.
Man. Oh, okay. Oh, throwing us for a loop.
Donkey Kong. I don't know
Yeah.
why.
Did not expect that.
Yeah, I don't know why. And also, I've been playing a lot of Elden Ring lately, so like that first gate that's locked, it reminds me of one of the Elden Ring mine doors. But anyways, go on.
So, fortunately, that key is located right at the beginning by teleporting through that mirror.
And it's super easy to find.
Yeah, you get it, and you go straight back to the Amazon stage, and the level's really straightforward. There's a lot of enemies that repeat, from the Amazon stage specifically. Did I say Amazon? So, okay, so you go back to the African mines, but there's enemies that repeat from the Amazon stage. My bad.
Which is actually kind of surprising because a lot of the game, like, there's not a whole lot of repeating bad guys or repeating sprites or anything like that. Like, this game does have a lot of variety to it, except, yeah, like this one had stupid fly traps in it. Which,
Yeah,
why are
those
why are
definitely-
there fly traps in a mine?
Who knows? I mean, there's tons of games that make no sense
Subterranean fly
whatsoever.
traps. I mean, we were talking about a duck that's using his cane as a pogo stick, so.
A very rich duck. Thank you very much.
The richest duck.
The richest person
King of rich
in the
ducks.
world.
Question for you guys: did either of you find the hidden treasure in this level?
No.
I don't know if I did, no.
So when you find Mrs. Beakley, she'll drop several ice cream cones down
Oh,
on
I
you.
know that part.
Further to the right, there's a giant ledge. If you jump, then these enemies will jump in the air with you, and you can pogo on them
Oh, right. Yes.
all the way
Okay,
to
yeah.
the far right.
All the way, yeah.
Yeah,
And,
so you-
and basically, it's like a leap of faith, and you just got to keep going. Yes, I did find that.
Yeah, so you get the golden ring by doing that.
It's the other one that I didn't find. Because
What do you mean? You didn't find
Yeah.
the other hidden treasure?
yeah, aren't there only two like hidden big treasures?
Yeah, there's only
I'm-
there's only 2 hidden treasures, and then each level has its own treasure to seek out.
Right. So yeah, I found this one. I don't know where the other treasure is.
Fortunately, I do, and we'll talk about it when we get there.
Right after this break. Kidding.
No, that wouldn't be a bad place for a break.
But we didn't talk about the slug boss.
You're right. You're right. Okay, so the
Gonna
slug
call
boss.
us out.
Yeah, the slug boss. Well, Chris, talk about it.
Well, wait,
There's
and
not
we
much of
also
slug
didn't talk
boss.
about the ducks that jump out of the water.
Okay, well, you gotta pick one. You gonna talk about
Well,
Duckman? You gonna talk about Slug Boss?
We talk about the duck man. What's the name of the duck man?
I don't know.
Duck
I don't have all the enemies memorized.
I called them muck ducks.
Muck ducks.
Yeah. Sorry, I wanted to bring that up just so I could call them muck ducks.
Is that your goal here to just use
Yep.
the word muck duck?
Yep.
Okay.
Because it
right.
rhymes.
So tell us about the boss, whose name
Tell
is
us
King
about Muck
Slime.
Duck. King
It-
Slime of the Muck Duck clan.
King Slime. See, I was close. I called him Slug King. I mean, wait, were they slugs or was it just like supposed to be like a slime monster?
Well, I mean, his name is King Slime.
Well, I mean, slugs can be
Looks
slimy.
like a monster.
Looks like a slug to me.
Yeah, so
Look, big
another-
cartoony slug.
another really easy boss, because all he does is he'll just circle around the stage, and by that, for those of you that haven't played it, he literally climbs on the walls and in the ceiling and just does a loop-de-loop basically. And he'll do that circle. He'll stop in the center, and all you have to do is jump over him and then pogo on him. So I haven't mentioned it yet, but the boss music in this game is really good.
I can't think of any of it. I hope you play some.
Well, it just played.
Oh.
You haven't heard it yet because that's about 5 hours into our future.
But the boss music, like I hear the level music so often because it's playing over and over. But the boss fights are so short and so quick that the music doesn't even stick in my head. Like it's not on repeat long enough to get stuck there.
Yeah, that's fair. So you guys got anything more for the African mines?
No.
No.
All right. Let's move on to the Himalayas.
After this break.
Welcome back, everyone. So we had to take that quick break. Chris needed to tell us some stuff. Obviously all that has been cut out, but I wish you could have heard the conversation we had. But we're going to instead talk about the Himalayas. So Chris, you were talking about this a little bit in your memories of the game. Why don't you start off by talking to us what your feelings are on the Himalayas today?
It's my least favorite level. I mean, obviously you got to do it, but
My favorite mountain range.
yeah, I mean, like all the other, yeah, this is definitely, I don't know, the stick in the mud level, the stick in the ice level. Yeah, I don't know. Nothing stands out about it except for the fact that there's a bunch of spots where you can't use your pogo sticks because, pogos don't work in the snow. So
what he's talking about is that there's a game mechanic where there's areas that have snow, and if you try to use the pogo mechanic, Scrooge McDuck will get stuck temporarily. I agree with you, though there's not much to this level. It's very straightforward. There's not
Yeah.
even very many hazards. So one thing I haven't really talked about before
it's got snow bunnies.
is that each of these levels has basically 2 routes. And there's like the direct right to the boss, and then there's the cash grab where there's an optimal route that you can take to maximize the amount of money you can get for each playthrough.
Which we should mention, the whole idea of the game is to collect as much money as possible.
Well, the whole point of the game is to collect the hidden, not the hidden treasures, but the treasures. And then there's, I'll talk about it at the end, but there is a secret that's tied to the amount of money that you get. But did any of you guys ever use Launchpad to leave the level?
Yeah, he takes you into the clouds.
No,
Chris?
I never did actually. No.
Magic
I would.
adventure.
I didn't want to lose any progress, so I never did. So, like, what actually happens if you take him?
Takes you into the sky, and then you go on a magic adventure where you collect money.
Yeah, there's areas that you can. It's like a little bonus area, and then sometimes he'll just pull you out of the level, but you keep all that money.
Right. See, and that's what I mean. As a kid, I mean, he'd pull me out of the level, and I was like, "Oh, I'm not doing that again." Like, so I never. I don't know. Every time I see him, I always figure. I mean, it's kind of like a save point or something, right? Because not a save point, but like a checkpoint of the level, because you get to save whatever you kept, but
you save
have to
whatever
start
you kept.
over again.
Exactly. You start from the very beginning of that level.
Yeah. So I always skip past them.
Yeah, that's fair. So the boss is the Abominable Snowman, and again, not a difficult boss. He'll hit the side of the level, and that causes snowballs to fall. And while it's not difficult to avoid, you at least have to move around a little bit. Otherwise you're going to die. You only get 3 hits.
Oh yeah, and you have to time your jumps to get through them. They're not super hard,
No,
I'm definitely. I'm sure my 6-year-old will have a hard time with it, but
it's a much harder boss than Zarduck or the Slime King, but it's an easy boss overall.
Yeah, I would say so.
Any thoughts, Cory?
Yeah, I mean, this one was a little more frustrating than the previous ones, but still, manageable, certainly.
Definitely. So our last level that we can select here is the moon. So I'm torn between this and Transylvania being my favorite levels.
Yeah.
My favorite.
Yeah, the
Dang it.
music is just outstanding.
And the music, like you gotta admit, like the music for the moon is so. I said the Transylvania is my favorite, but that's because if anyone's gonna ask what is the best music in this game is, it's gonna be the moon music because it is so good that it makes you forget. Like the music is too good to be a DuckTales song. Like, does that make sense? Like, it is the moon's music has so much feels in it that it's not a silly Saturday morning cartoon. Like it makes it feel so much heavier and emotional than just playing DuckTales.
Sure.
I like the music speaks to me in this level.
I don't have that kind of connection to this music, but I know what you're talking about.
Like
I mean,
So,
I just think it's
imagine,
banging. Like
I
thought
imagine
the
here,
music
I imagine hearing
slaps.
this music like in a Final Fantasy game or something. Like it's so like cinematic. Like
okay. Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong with your opinion. I think it's amazing music.
mhm.
So this level is one of my similar to Transylvania because it's not very linear. This makes it one of my favorite levels to play, not just because of the great music, but because there's two objectives to this level. You have to hunt down the UFO key, and you have to find Gizmo Duck's remote.
Which and this is also the first mention of Gizmo Duck in the game, right?
Yes.
I mean, it's more like a cameo. I don't know. You see him and then he's gone for the rest of the game. But it's cool that they brought Gizmo Duck in there too, because he was always my favorite as a kid, like in the cartoon.
Bonus points. Do you remember his catchphrase that assembles the Gizmo Duck suit to him?
Oh no, isn't it some Blarthy or I
It's blathering blatherskites.
I was close.
Blatherin'
I like it like
Blatherskates.
Barthy or something like yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's nonsense, but yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
I can tell you why that's still in my head after, you know, all
Because
these years later.
He
Yeah, Gizmo Duck was just cool as hell.
he was awesome. He was the RoboCop of DuckTales.
I mean, my favorite duck of the Duck franchise is Darkwing Duck, personally. So
Oh, okay, yeah. No, was
Let's
Gizmo
get
Duck in anything
dangerous.
else?
Darkwing Duck. I don't think so.
Okay. So in this particular series though, Gizmo was awesome. Darkwing Duck was awesome. I loved Darkwing Duck as a kid.
Darkwing.
Well, there was like this block that you had
Mhm.
like DuckTales, Chippendale Rescue Rangers, Tailspin,
Now-
Darkwing Duck.
Rangers.
Now, were Chippendales like in the same universe as?
Yeah.
Okay, because that's another game we need to talk about too. I love the Rescue Rangers game.
So I didn't mention it before, but I played this game on the Disney Afternoon Collection.
And
I-
that has that in there, doesn't it?
Yes, I had it through. I bought it on PlayStation 4 some time ago, and it's backwards compatible on the PS5.
Oh, nice.
And this has, I believe, I don't want to say something wrong, but I believe it's both of the DuckTales games, both of the Chippendale Rescue Rangers games, the Darkwing Duck
And
game,
Darkwing
and the
Duck.
Tailspin.
Tailspin is another one.
That's a good little bundle right there.
Yeah, it's a great, set of games. But back to the moon. So this is the second level that has a hidden treasure, and it's the golden mirror, and it's similar to how you find the hidden treasure in the African mines, that you have this large gap, and you have to bounce on enemies to get all the way to the opposite side.
Okay, I never. I don't know.
Eh,
I don't know why.
I didn't find too many cool secrets, but like everywhere you go, though, there's something that you can like.
And I
smack.
think, yeah, and I
There's
think by
just
the
so many
time,
weird spots that you can just hit with a cane.
and
Yeah,
probably
we haven't really talked about that. Is that the exploration maybe isn't there, but you did mention, Corey, that every time you basically take a step and jump, or maybe you mentioned it, Chris. Yeah, something will pop up that you can just backtrack a couple steps and go and grab. So it kind of encouraged you to pogo every part of the level so that you went everywhere you could trying to get as much money as possible for Scrooge's greedy ass.
Gotta make that cash.
So my notes are incomplete. I don't have a boss listed here, and I didn't. I played the game like 2 weeks ago.
He's the rat boss.
Yeah, the big rat in the cave.
Oh yes,
which is the
And you get-
weirdest like opponent for a moon fight, honestly.
Because the moon's made out of cheese, and the prize that you get for beating him is a piece of cheese. You get moon cheese. You get it?
Moon cheese.
I never put that together. Oh God, it's like a weight crushing me right now. But yeah, I thought that was weird too. Why there was a giant rat where you had all these unique enemies to this level. You had all these
like,
different
robots
aliens
and everything else, and it's just
Uh-huh.
like what?
Space squids and and spikes everywhere. Spikes of death.
Yeah,
everywhere.
there were a ton.
And then rat boss. And also not a very hard boss.
No, not at all. Magic of Dispel, like I said, is the most mechanically involved boss and probably my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just such Transylvania is such a great level. But we beat the rat boss and then we move to the final showdown. So once you've collected all 5 of the treasures, they're stolen from you and you're transported back to Transylvania for a 3rd time. You have to navigate the level like normal, but this time you have a different boss. This is where you fight Dracula Duck.
Now, I assume, is that Miss Dracula Duck's husband?
I don't think Dracula Duck is canon to anything. I think they're just.
okay.
I think they just
See,
made a Dracula Duck.
I always assume the witch duck. I can't. What's her name?
Magica Dispel.
Yeah, I always just assumed Magica Dispelled was like the wife of Dracula Duck that you would fight in a minute.
You know, it would have made a lot more sense to have Dracula Duck as the boss for Transylvania, and then Magica the boss for the final showdown. I wonder why that is. Regardless, after you beat the boss, you have a short scene with Magica and Flintheart Glomgold, and you have to quickly climb the rope. Yeah, Flintheart Glomgold, that's Scrooge's rival.
That's his main competitor.
Just
That's the
silly
other.
name.
Yeah, but that's the other richest duck in the world. That
The second
Scrooge.
richest duck.
Yeah.
So you have to quickly climb the rope that drops from the ceiling as they fly upwards towards it. My dog came back in.
Hello, dog.
Yeah, that's her just plopping down. So
What's up, Pooch?
as they're flying upwards, you're climbing this rope towards a treasure chest that's containing all the treasures. It's very easy to outpace them, but I went ahead and I wanted to see what it was like if you
Did
don't.
you lose on purpose?
Yeah, I lost
I
on
was going to
purpose.
ask. I didn't do that.
If you don't beat them there, Magica and Flintheart get there, you lose a life, you have to refight Dracula Duck, and then you have to climb the rope again.
Oh, so just hold the up button and you're good.
Yeah. So it's almost impossible to fail this task unless you do it intentionally.
Yeah, there's no tricks to it or anything. It's just I always just thought it was like basically like almost like a cut scene that you're participating in.
Yeah.
Quick time event.
Oh my God, the first QuickTime event. So once you get to the top, a short cutscene plays, if you want to call it that, with a newspaper noting Scrooge's accomplishments. That he collected all 5 of these hidden treasures. But if you manage to collect all 5 of the treasures, plus both of the hidden treasures, and had at least $10 million, you get an alternate newspaper where Scrooge has a crown on his head.
That's cool.
Yeah, so there was something more for the completionist out there.
So, I mean, I suppose I could have researched this at the time. Were there any other games out there at this time that had multiple endings?
Oh, I'm sure.
Okay.
I can't name off any from this exact time period, but I'm sure. I mean, that was just something that just games did. It was an easy way for developers to kind of add something special.
Add tiers of completion.
Yeah, so that's the final showdown. Do you guys have any final comments for this level or for any other levels?
There were a few things that I did notice. So I mean, we talked about the great music. The game totally does fit in, like overall. It feels like it I mean, it was rated the top 10 NES game of all time for a good reason because it fits in with all the other legendary NES games.
So if these are your final thoughts, we'll do that in our last segment.
Oh,
But
okay.
this is just kind of a recap of anything that you kind of experienced on this playthrough.
Mood music, best music.
No. All right, what I mean, I assume obviously, I got just the normal ending. What about you guys?
I also got the normal ending. I'm not that cool.
I got the good ending.
What?
Oh, look at
Oh,
this
of course you
guy
did.
over here.
Well, I knew that.
Screenshot or it didn't happen.
Yeah, I'll have to take a picture of my phone, but yeah, I'll do it.
No, I'm kidding. I'm
But
kidding.
I think I think I made a save state just so I could go back and redo everything. So I knew that you could use Launchpad to manipulate the level so you can rack up as much money as possible. So I kept doing that. You can only use them one time, but I played through the game normally, and then I played through it again with the intention of just combing it and getting as much cash as I
Getting
could.
all of it. 100%ing it.
Yeah. So I didn't know about the secret ending at first, but the game's not long. It's not hard. So I went and beat it. Then I went back and made sure I got the secret ending that I didn't even know about until doing all the research. So,
Kudos.
nothing?
Nope, nothing for me.
All right, let's take our last break. And when we come back, we're going to discuss our final thoughts of DuckTales for NES. Stick around. Our last segment where we discuss our final thoughts on the game. Chris, why don't you start us off and tell us how you feel about DuckTales overall? Is this something you're going to continue to play? Are you one and done? What are your thoughts?
No, this is definitely one I'm going to continue play. I recommend, like 10 out of 10, play this game. It's just it's such a fun game. I mean, and I'm sure I'm biased because it rates so highly on the nostalgia factor, but it's a great game. It's really well made. The music is great. The level design is great. The variety is great. One thing, and it fits right in with all the legendary NES games. So like it deserves to be ranked like number 10 of best NES games of all time. There's secrets everywhere for you to find. So like I don't know, it keeps it from getting old. But I suppose once you know all the secrets, then it gets old. But still, it's going to take you a long time to learn all the secrets. Just like playing Mario 1, where years of playing it teaches you where all these secrets are, and you just get to know them. And then every time you play, you're going to be going through getting those secrets without even just out of habit, you know. One thing I was going to ask: did you guys notice like any similarities to Indiana Jones?
No.
No?
That never came
not.
up in my mind.
Because I mean, like the DuckTales, like one thing I found out after the fact, DuckTales was a comic first, right?
Yes.
And then apparently when George Lucas was making Indiana Jones, he was inspired by DuckTales.
So a lot
And
of
then
those old comics that you're talking about are like the adventures of Scrooge McDuck about
Right.
how he amasses his fortune.
yeah, so and that inspired Indiana Jones. But apparently, but if you look at the DuckTales, like look at the amazing box art, the font on that is Indiana Jones and like Raiders of the Lost Ark or whatever. Like it's, and then there's the couple. What was it in the mine where you have to avoid the rolling ball?
Okay, I can see where there might be some.
And I should have brought that up in the mine,
Aspects.
like when we were talking. But no, it's just I mean, it's just fun little adventure game where you're like going out and collecting treasure. Like it's just a great game. And one other thing, I already mentioned Mario too many times. Am I allowed to mention one more time?
No, but go
Too many
ahead.
times.
Okay. So then I won't mention that whenever you beat a boss, it reminds me of beating a boss in Mario 3.
Yeah, don't mention that.
Yep. So
How-
Cory,
How when the little scepter comes down and you catch it and
Cory,
How you
this
doing?
this is your first time really playing through the game. What are your thoughts on it?
It's a lot of fun. It's very straightforward, very simple. Like I said, the controls leave a little to be desired, in my opinion. But like you really can't do much with it. It's just a matter of timing it and getting the rhythm of it. But I really think that pogo stick is something that like needs a bit of practice before you're really comfortable with it. But other than that, like it's just a kind of a fun, like family friendly game. The music is great, the graphics are fine, and it's just this enjoyable little romp, and you get to sing about DuckTales. I mean, good 7.5 stars would recommend.
Oh, and can I mention the pogo, the fun of the pogo? I mean, for a platformer, that adds such a fun little spin on your typical side-scrolling platformer. I just think
that was one of the things I was going to mention. Is that I think that game mechanic is
totally changed it up. Yeah,
it's unique and it's fun. And you're right,
without
Cory. It does take a little bit to figure out, the rhythm and the timing. But once you got it, you got it.
Oh yeah, I mean, it probably took me a good like 20 minutes sitting down to really get the feel for this, and it didn't help that I started on the Amazon, which we've all discussed is like the worst level. So
it's also like the tutorial level.
Yeah,
so.
well, kind of. I mean, it's the one where they throw the most crap at you, but they never like explain to you how to do any of the mechanics. Like it's
Yes,
just
they
kind
do.
of
They actually do it in that
you
level.
start the game and it just is like, okay, here you go. Like there's no words on the screen.
Yes, there are.
Yeah, so
I didn't see no words.
You're expected to kind of have the manual with you, but if you play it like I did on that Disney Afternoon Collection, there is a little section where they in detail explain how to do each of the moves. We didn't even talk about using the pogo as like a golf club.
Oh yeah, you can smack stuff around too. That was pretty fun.
Beat stuff.
Yeah, and that's how you beat some of those enemies like the mummy ducks.
Yeah, and a lot of the hanging things like the spiders and some of the like snakes and stuff on the Amazon. You launch rocks at them and stuff like that too. Yeah,
so
I mean, like I said,
a lot of good mechanics.
It's a good game. I enjoyed it. It's just it took a little. There's a bit of a learning curve, in my opinion.
Yeah,
I swear I remember in the Amazon level, there's like somebody you talk to and says try jumping on the enemies and using the pogo stick to bounce off enemies or something like that. I can't remember.
It might say that, but they're not like.
But they don't say like
jump
hold
and
down and
jump,
press
push
B. Like
right.
And I also don't recall running into anyone that talks to you like in the first half of the level. So.
Well, I mean, I mean, isn't Launchpad in the Amazon?
Yeah, he's like way further in though.
Yeah, he's like just over the halfway mark.
It's such a short level.
Yeah, it is a short level, but going through half the level without the core mechanics. It's like if you're playing Mario and they're like, "Hey, you can break open boxes." It's like, but I'm already like at Bowser's castle.
Yeah, there definitely needs to be a little bit more. And again, like I was saying earlier, there just wasn't a lot of these gaming conventions that we expect nowadays.
Right, and I mean it's very evident of the era because I mean we talk about I think I've mentioned before like the Batman game, and it's basically impossible.
So good.
Because
but it's so fun though.
Yeah, but like if you start that game up and you don't know the mechanics, like it's impossible to play. And if you like pick that game up as a rental and it didn't come with the manual, you're just like, I can't get past
what
this
do I
floor.
do? Yeah.
Like because you're just like you have to like hold a button and hit like the select key, I think, and it's just like, oh, okay.
And for this game, Sean did send me the PDF of the manual, and it is a book. Like this is one of those games that like had I bought it in the store, I would have been in the backseat of the car reading the book on my way home, like on the half an hour car ride home, just reading through every page of this thing.
I miss that.
Yeah.
I miss having really good manuals in games.
Now you just go on YouTube and watch a walkthrough.
I remember getting a copy of Red for Pokemon, and it was like a little Pokedex. That was like really cool.
Right?
But yeah, anyway, like it's a good game. I enjoyed it. Like I said, it takes a bit to get the mechanics down, but when you do, it's really easy and really straightforward.
I think it's a great game. The levels are all unique. Most of them are pretty linear, but you do have the two exceptions, Transylvania and the Moon, where you have to do a little bit of backtracking. Like we mentioned in the dog scratching herself.
Like we mentioned in the Moon, you do it by accident.
Well, in the Moon, you have to, because you have to go find the key and the controller. And then
Oh yeah, they're on
Transylvania,
opposite sides. Yeah, I forgot.
Transylvania, like we said, has the mirrors and you can get thrown all over the place, but then you're going to have to go back there 2 other times just throughout the game. The bosses, they're not very challenging or even memorable. I don't remember any of those from the cartoons except for Magica.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
all throwaways.
Yeah, I think they were just cheesy, little generic bosses that were made just to fit the theme of the level.
Yeah. While I believe that this game was meant for the younger audience, the same audience that was watching the game, or excuse me, watching the cartoon in the 80s and 90s, it's still a fun game and it's worth playing.
Yeah. And that's probably one reason I liked it as a kid so much, because it wasn't punishing. Like it was an enjoyable game, and it still is. Like it's I was playing this game a lot on. Well, I was gonna say I was playing a lot on my like lunch breaks and stuff, and it's just fun. Like just turn on and play for 10 minutes at a time, and it's just great.
It's just great. There's not much else to be said about it.
It's
So-
just great.
You can follow us on Twitter at ReviewByte. That's BYTE. We're on iHeartRadio. That's where I look at all the statistics and everything. That's how most people find us and listen to us. We have our own Discord server. That link will be in the show notes. In our next
Please
game,
join it.
we're going to be playing Doom, the 1993, not the new one that came out in 2016. We're going to be playing the old school Doom. So come
I
back,
will be
stick around for
playing
that.
it on a refrigerator.
Chris, Corey, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for playing through this game with me.
Thanks for having me.
You, the listener out there, thanks for listening. We appreciate each and every one of you guys. And we've been talking about the moon music this whole time, but you haven't heard it yet. So enjoy,
Oh,
because that's what I'm going to play right now. Do 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 do. Here
It's
in
cars, lasers, airplane.
airplane.
It's
It's
a duck blur. Might solve a mystery. Don't sue us, Disney. DuckTales. Woo!